Hey groovy dudes and dudettes, this is Thomper B. Thompin, and in this video I want to tell you guys what it's like to daily drive and live with a vehicle that you've built up for off-roading. This is my 2014 Toyota 4Runner. It's the Trail Edition. It's currently called the Toyota TRD Off-Road Edition. And I've built it up quite a bit with suspension bumpers. I'm going to walk you through all that stuff, and I'm going to tell you what it's been like to live with and maintain each of those components. And in the description below I will include a bunch of links to the products that I've purchased. I have absolutely no affiliation with any of these companies, but if you like something you see, and maybe you can buy it for your 4Runner. But this 4Runner's it's 5 years old, and I've got about 75,000 miles on it. I live and work in the DC area, so I'm daily driving in the city, the suburbs, and I like to come out to the country as much as I can too. So I do a lot of highway miles, and also I pull a trailer with some ATVs. So I've got a good mix of kind of all the different driving conditions. So I'd like to tell you guys my impressions of that as well. So I'm going to grab the camera here, and I'm going to start from the top of the vehicle down, and we're going to go right into talking about each of these components. So here we go. Okay, so I'm up on top of the roof here, as you can see, and I want to start obviously with this roof rack. This is made by Baja rack, and I got the full length roof rack with the full mesh because I don't have a sunroof. And overall, the rack has been really good to me. Structurally sound. I put a bunch of RTV sealant into these holes here, which help for waterproofing, so that I haven't had any water leakage issues whatsoever. And the rack is held up really well, except for the powder coat. You'll notice a bunch of spots here, hopefully the camera's picking it up, where the powder coat is peeling and it's rusting really bad. And it's actually been, there's a flake that just came off right there, so I'll take care of that when I get home. But it's been tough to keep up with. This is the only aftermarket metal product I've had that's peeling this badly. So I probably wouldn't go with Baja rack again, solely based on their powder coat. I would maybe go with Gobi. And if you don't have the need for the weight capacity, because I think that this thing can hold 300 pounds moving, 800 pounds static, then perhaps just go with a Yakima Warrior rack. Save yourself a lot of money. And real quick, this is the Baja rack ladder, which is also available on their website. This one hasn't had as much of a peeling issue with the powder coat, but it's still definitely present. But the ladder holds up really well. Slap a little grip tape on there, and that's been good to me. Lighting, I just got some cheap lights by Auxbeam off of Amazon. These have been on the truck for about 4 years, and they have done really well. I used the stock switches that came with the lights. I just mounted them up in the truck there, and they've been perfectly fine. So the only recommendation I'd make regarding these lights is to take a little Allen wrench, tighten up all these little bolts, and then perhaps use some RTV sealant along the edges to keep yourself nice and waterproof. That has not been an issue for me whatsoever. So I would definitely get cheap lights off of Amazon. Take good care of them when you install them, and you should be just fine. Save yourself some money there. Okay, so next I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about this CB mount. Unfortunately, I forget who makes it. It's just a pretty random CB mount that's built for lift gates, and I'll show you the inside of it here in a minute. But this CB mount has held up really, really well. I've had zero maintenance issues with it whatsoever. Now, for my CB antenna, I did get a medium spring. I highly recommend getting a spring to save yourself from trees or parking garages, whatever you may run into. But I only got a 3-foot antenna, which sticks above the roof by maybe a foot. If I could redo that, I'd certainly get a much taller antenna. I only put mine on when I'm on trips, like with my brother and when he's in his Jeep and stuff. So get yourself a huge antenna, put a nice heavy duty or like medium strength spring on it. But this CB mount, I'll try to find a link to it or something similar to it, but it's been really good to me. All right, next I want to talk about this Schrockworks bumper. But before I do that, there's one thing I forgot to mention regarding this ladder. This ladder is pretty heavy, right? So you will have to get some aftermarket struts. I forget who makes these. These were one of the struts that were recommended on the 4Runner forums on toyota4runner.org. But they add, I think, about 40 to 50 pounds of extra lifting strength. Mine are starting to wear out after a couple of years, and in the cold, my tailgate will just fall down on my head. So it works fine in the summertime, but it doesn't work as well in the cold. So be extra cautious when you're getting these struts for your tailgate. I would go a little bit heavier than you might think. Okay, so on to the Schrockworks rear bumper. This does require cutting to fit, but the instructions, I do recall, this was years ago, were very, very good. This powder coat is fantastic. I love this bumper. It has been really good to me, except it is kind of pricey, but that's just the nature of aftermarket bumpers for 4Runners, right? So I got the pretty standard bumper. I also opted for the rear swing gate and the tire carrier, and then I got a single jerry can. I don't really use the single jerry can holder much at all, but it also comes with a license plate light, which I've replaced multiple times already. I think I'm on my third or fourth one because I keep breaking them. It's a kind of a fragile spot for your license plate, but they originally want you to put them on your spare tire, but I do a 5-tire rotation, so I don't want to be messing with that every single time I gotta rotate my tires. But the bumper's been great. It's held up to some heavy abuse, and it's just really not showing much wear at all. The only issue I have with the bumper in general is that the locking mechanism can kind of rust up. So my vehicle sits outside 24/7, and this little locking mechanism pin has rusted shut on me before when I hadn't used my tailgate in like a month and a half or something like that. And again, this has been on the truck for several years now. So, but a little brake dust cleaner, and I just move it in and out once a week or so, you know, if I'm not using the swing gate much. And that's that keeps it nice and clean and moving freely. So, and of course I do have the Schrockworks front bumper as well. Same high quality powder coat. I opted for the 3-hoop system up front, and I highly recommend this. These little hoops have saved my headlights a couple times here in these tight trees on the East Coast. Also, where I sit, like my ride height in the driver's seat, I can see the corners of these hoops on each side, and that just really helps me navigate around trees. So that's a kind of a little bonus feature. But yeah, the Schrockworks front bumper for the 5th gen 4Runner has held up really well. I have absolutely no issues. So from there, we're just gonna dive straight into the winch. Obviously, it's gonna be a little bit tough to see down there, but I have an Engo winch with synthetic line. It's a 10,000 pound winch. Got some of the factory 55. I got the Fairlead in there, and I got the thimble puller here. That stuff's held up really well. A little bit of sun fade, but no issues there. The winch, similar to these auxiliary lights on the front, I took an Allen wrench to it, tightened everything up. I put a little bit of sealant around some of the edges just to make sure that no water would get in there. And sure enough, it has held up really well. I've used it plenty of times out here on our property, and it's powerful, it's reliable. I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. I would totally go out and buy an Engo winch again. All right, moving into the sliders. These sliders are the Bud-Built bump out sliders. Again, link in the description below. I did not get the filler plates here, and I did not get them powder coated from Bud-Built, so I can't really speak to that. But I would highly recommend getting this bump out. I can recall 2 occasions, again, here in these thick forests on the East Coast, where this bump out has saved my rear quarter panel here, because it just kind of pushes you around the tree when you're coming in a bit too tight. So that's been really good. The only thing I don't like about these sliders, and it's really just my own issue, is see how they're kind of angled up? I wish they came out flat. I realized that I would lose a little bit of clearance on the edges, but I did have to use the high lift jack on the side here once, and I had to lift the whole side of the vehicle up off the ground. And when I set it back down, I opened up the rear door and it was hitting the slider just a little bit. Now, all I had to do was jump on the slider a couple times and it gave it the clearance it needed to open and close the door. But, you know, one that came out flat perfectly at 90 degrees would be a little bit better in my opinion. All right, now we are moving into the suspension. I do have very much a Frankenstein setup. I'm gonna try and get some better light here. I have the toytec Ultimate coilovers in front. This is actually my second set because the first set I snapped off in Moab. I don't know how I did it, but that snapped right. No, it actually occurred up here where that stem meets the larger stem. I hear that's pretty common on coilover setups for trucks and SUVs. Like if there's going to be a breaking point, that's where it occurs. And I will admit that I was beating the snot out of this thing when that happened. We were going about 45 miles per hour through the desert and just careening through these trails, which was really stupid. But yeah, the toytec Ultimate kit for the front end has been really good to me. And for the rear suspension, I essentially, again, have like a little bit of a Frankenstein setup. I have Old Man Emu rear shocks that gave an extra 440 pounds of capacity in the back because of all the bumpers and everything. And then I think I have some Bilstein, what are they, the 5150 shocks. Those things have been incredibly impressive. They've held up so well. I put these shocks on when the vehicle was 2 weeks old and I had 350 miles. Maybe it says the number in there, I can't quite see. But yeah, these little Bilsteins have been really good to me. Absolutely no like shock fade or anything like that. They still work as well, at least how I perceive them. They still work as well as they did from day one. All right, and the last little suspension bit I have to talk about is these Total Chaos upper control arms. They have the Uniball in there, which technically does not require any maintenance. That is designed to last the life of the upper control arm. These have been really good to me. The only thing you got to do is keep up with greasing these polyurethane bushings in there, because they will get squeaky and noisy if you don't keep up on it. I try to do mine every 6 months. They got, can't really see it, but there's a Zerk there, one on each side. You just hit those with a particular type of grease. That's really important. I'll put a link in the description below to the specific kind of grease that you need to use for polyurethane bushings. If you use standard automotive grease, you will get premature wear and tear, and they will start to squeak even worse. I know that from experience. All right, we are almost done here, folks. Next, I'm going to talk about skid plates. I'm going to climb under there in a second here, but initially I ordered the full front to back skid plates from RCI. I ordered the aluminum skid plates because I did want to save a little bit of weight, and so far it's all been really good. RCI has this wonderful little cutout for oil changes. That has come in handy quite a bit, and the skid plates have held up pretty good. I even got the A-arm skids. Probably overkill, unnecessary, but whatever. I do want to show you these aluminums have, you know, I've scraped them up a little bit. I got a bend here, which I was able to bend back out a little bit. But the real story is the gas tank skid. So let's go check that bad boy out. Okay, so here's my gas tank skid plate, and you're gonna notice it does not say RCI on it. That's because the aluminum RCI gas tank skid plate got sheared off during a trip to Roush Creek. So there's a couple bolts here. These metal tabs, which sit flat up against your frame, were completely, Harper, you're interrupting the video. They were completely sheared off. So I said no thanks to aluminum, and I just went straight back to a steel skid plate. So the C4 Fab skid plate has been pretty nice. and hasn't given me any issues since. It is a lot heavier though, but it's holding up. All right, I've been flapping my gums for way too long here. Last thing I want to talk to you about is wheels and tires. Wheels and tires are obviously something that everyone's just going to pick out for themselves for their own styles, but I bought a pair or a set of ATX Ledge series rims, 17-inch by 8-inch wide. They got a Teflon coating, which I think, you know, that's just marketing now to me. The rims are fine. They got this cool like gray color, but the thing I like about this package the most is these Cooper Discover ST Max tires. I am blown away by these tires. I put them on at about 350 miles, and here I am at 75,000 miles, and I don't anticipate having to replace them for like another 6 months to a year. I think I'm gonna get 80 plus. Keep in mind, I'm doing a 5-tire rotation, but that 5th tire was taken out of commission due to a super slow leak about 40,000 miles ago. I just can't believe how well these have held up. So I would totally buy these Cooper Discover ST Maxes again. I did get the E-rated tires with the 10-ply rating. And these are in the 32-inch size, the 275 70/17s. Okay folks, so that's about it. Last thing I want to tell you about is like driving with this thing. I get absolutely terrible fuel economy. You know, I try to get as best I can, but in and around the city and the suburbs, you know, riding on the Beltway in DC, I'm getting about 15 to 16 and a half for an average tank. Towing, I'm getting about 10 to 11, and that's towing about 3,000 pounds. This thing is just not happy towing that kind of weight up over the mountains here in West Virginia, especially with these taller tires, these heavier tires, and all the additional weight. I will say from personal experience, I think the aerodynamics, the changes to the aerodynamics that I've made affect that highway fuel economy way more than any kind of weight you can add to the vehicle, even unsprung weight in the wheels and tires. So something to consider. If you're gonna do this, you're gonna get terrible fuel economy, and you're gonna have to constantly keep up with all your aftermarket components by greasing them, looking out for rust, trying to stay ahead of that. But overall, I'm happy I did this. I learned a lot, was definitely humbled several times, and yeah, hopefully that Toyota Tundra is a real thing, because I'm probably, or that Toyota Tundra hybrid is a real thing, because I'm probably gonna get that next. We'll see. Still got another several years with this bad boy. All right, thanks for watching, guys.